Designing products, build them now. Cook and sew, make it wow, wow. So come along, it's DT with Grammarsaurus.
We're looking at how to celebrate Central American flavors, and to do that we're going to make our own tortillas with guacamole and salsa. Let's go through some of the ingredients and equipment you'll need today. So for our ingredients we have some avocados, some chopped tomatoes, I've already pre-chopped those, a white onion, I've pre-chopped that as well. We have a lime and some salt. For our tortillas we need some flour. I'm using white spelt flour, but you can use normal plain flour as well. We need our measuring spoons, our knives and chopping boards and mixing bowl. Of course, a little pan to cook our tortillas. So that's everything. We're going to start by making the tortillas. We need 300 grams of flour, so I'm going to add that now to the bowl. Perfect. There we go, 300 grams. To make the tortilla dough, I've got my measured out 300 grams of flour, my 180 millilitres of warm water and salt. For the salt, you just need to add a pinch. So not too much, there we go. And I'll leave that aside for later. And then we need to start making the dough. So I'm gonna add the water a little bit at a time until it starts to get thicker and thicker and thicker. Okay, so here we go. So I've added some water already and you can see that the dough has started to form, and then add a little bit more. And it'll be quite sticky and it'll stick to your hand, but if you just keep turning it, you can see it starts to form. We're kneading it here. Oh, that was quite a lot, but it'll be okay. Knead the dough. I'm just going to pop the water down so I can hold the bowl. There we go. Knead the dough together. Okay, and then when it starts to get drier again, you can see that we haven't collected all the flour in yet and it hasn't combined into the mixture. So that means we've got more water to go. So a little bit more. There we go. And again, it will start to get drier. And as it does, we just add the last remaining bit of water. It's looking good though. There we go, that should get all the final bits up. It's nice and sticky, so it will pull the last bits off the side of the bowl. There we go. Keep. If you think the mixture's a little bit too sticky, add a little bit more flour. If you think it's a little bit dry, add a little bit more water until you get the right consistency. I have added a tiny bit more flour to mine because I felt it was just a little bit too sticky. What I want to see is that when I fold it over and push it with the back of my hand, that it springs back. See how it's springy like that? And it's not sticking massively to my hands when I touch it. This was already on my hands from when it was too sticky, but you can see the current mixture, see? It's not sticking to my hands on that side. So that side was good, the other side not so much. So that's why we need to go back in and potentially add a little bit more on that side as well. But yeah, knead it until you are happy that it's springy and it's not too sticky. Okay, I've just added a little bit of flour to the table here, and I'm going to bring my dough out and pop it on there, leave the bowl to the side. so that I can continue to knead it here. So I am folding it and I'm just pushing it down, either with your hands here, or you might choose to do it with the top of your hand, the bottom. But it's that kind of action where you fold and press, fold and press, fold and press, fold and press, like that. And you want to be at that point where it's springy and it's not sticking to my hands anymore. So I'd say that's pretty much perfect at that point. We're now going to take the dough and we're going to separate it into balls. I am going to make sure that they're about the size of my hand, so that when they flatten out, they're going to be big enough. Don't worry if you do them too small, you can always put it back together. But I think I'm going to take this mixture and I'm going to put it in 4 to make 4 tortillas. I think that should be enough. Now, a little tip for you. When you've done that, if you pick up each individual dough ball, if it's too wet and too sticky, and you can tell by how much it's sticking to you, so this is slightly too sticky, we need to add a tiny bit of flour, because otherwise when we use the plate to flatten them, it will stick to the bottom and it will tear. So I'm going to add a little bit of flour. To each one before I flatten them, to see if that improves things. Yes, see how it's not sticking now? Yeah, that one's really sticky, so I'm going to use some of the excess. Yeah, and this one's quite sticky. Yes, perfect. So I have 4 and they're the right consistency. So now we're going to take our flat plate. You could use a rolling pin if you want to, but then it's hard to get the shape. If you use a circular plate, it's much easier. So put one there and you're just going to push out. Now remember, if it's too sticky, it is going to stick to the plate. So you might have to add a bit more. Oh, there we go. That one came off perfectly. I might add, just to the bottom of the plate, a little bit of flour as well. And make sure you really push down so that it spreads out. Ooh. There we go. So that's our first one. You can then use your fingers to spread it out a little bit more. And again, if it's too sticky, just add a tiny bit of flour. There we go. That's our first tortilla. Ready. Let's move on to the next one. There we go. That gets the shape to start with, and you can use your fingers to kind of push it a little bit further, because it's okay for these to be on the thinner side, like tortilla wraps normally are that you buy from the shops. Oh. I'm going to just take a bit more flour from around the sides. Yep. And our next one. Add a bit of flour to the bottom of the dish again. There we go, that helps us to get the shape. And then again, just use your fingers to pull. That one's a bit smaller. It's all good. And finally, number 4. And there we go. We have 4 tortillas. If you think they're too thick, you can just pick them up and stretch them out a little bit. Don't worry if they're not a perfect circle either. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with those. These are pretty much ready. I'm just going back round to just make sure that I'm making them as big as I need them to be, so they're not too thick, and trying to keep them in that circular shape as much as possible. But when you think they're thin enough, you've got to be able to pick them up off the table. So again, make sure if they're too sticky that you add some flour, a bit more flour to this one, just like that. There we go, that's better. For this next part, an adult will cook the tortillas. For this, we've got a small pan with some spray oil in it, and once it is warm and the spray oil is ready, you're simply going to add in the tortilla. When it is golden brown, simply remove it and pop it on a plate ready, and then you can get your next one cooking. Okay, our tortilla wraps are done and ready to go. So now we need to make the salsa and then the guacamole. So let's focus on the salsa. For this we need our diced tomatoes. So I've taken some small tomatoes here and I've chopped them up. You could use big ones if you want, but they need to be relatively small. It depends how chunky you like the salsa. I like chunkier salsa, so I've kept them as quarters of small cherry tomatoes. So add that in. If you want it to be a bit more mashed up, then that's fine. You can of course just do that a little bit with a fork till you get that. Then we're going to add in some onion, some diced onion. Oh, it's going all over the place. Then you're going to add in some diced onion, and this is an option. I have some fresh coriander here. Some people do not like the taste of coriander, so add this if you want to. So add in some coriander, just a bit. And then we're going to add in some lime juice. So I've cut a lime in half and I'm just going to squeeze it in there. And then I'm going to do the same with the other half. Get some really nice citrus flavours in there. And then because we want to balance out the sweetness of the tomatoes, we're going to add a tiny pinch of salt, and then we are going to mix that all together. Now this is, remember, a chunky salsa. You, if you've eaten salsa before, might have quite a smooth one. To get that, you would need to blend this mixture. So if you want to do that and you have a blender, you can do that. But I've gone for the chunky variety. We're not going to blend today. So that's that there. Now it's time for the guacamole. Okay, so we have our tortillas made, we have our salsa. All that's left to do is create our guacamole, and to make that we need to get some avocados. So here we go, and we have our chopping board. We also are going to add some lime juice to the avocado and some salt as well. So mixing bowl at the ready, knife at the ready. When you go to cut your avocado, remember that in the middle there is a stone, and so you're not going to be able to cut all the way through. You need to cut until you reach the stone, okay? So I'm going to pick up my knife here, and I'm going to use the bridge method, where I put my thumb this side and my index finger this side, to cut the skin. And I can feel already that I can't go any further because I've got to that stone. So when I've got to that point, I need to continue to kind of go around the edge a little bit. I can see that the stone is there. So if I continue to go round the edge, you should be able to quite easily pull the avocado apart. There we go. And we can see that the stone there is inside. Don't worry, I've got clean hands. And then we remove the stone, put it aside, and that's our avocado. Let's do the other one. So bridge method again. And they're pretty easy to open, like that. Now, I've chosen ripe avocados. I know they're ripe because on the outside, when you push them, they feel very soft. And that means they're really good for guacamole because I can easily scoop the filling out now into a bowl and it'll be very mashable. If you want to slice avocado, then it needs to be slightly less ripe, otherwise it will just get too mushy. But we want the mushy kind. So we can use a spoon or a fork to go around the inside and pop it like that, into the mixing bowl. There we go. So just simply put your spoon or your fork around the edge like that and scoop it out. If there's any left, make sure you get in. Put the skin to the side, and last one. There we go. Okay, so now you can see we've got it quite chunky in there. I'm going to use the fork to mash our avocado all together. And it'll get to a point where it's quite easy to stir. Now you can do it as chunky or as smooth as you want. You can keep going with it. Keep going. I'm going to now add the lime. So take the lime and squeeze it. Into the guacamole like that. And I'm going to take a little bit of salt and add that in, and then we're going to continue. You'll find that the lime juice will make it even easier to mash. So you keep going until you're happy with the consistency. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I have my guacamole, I have my little serving dish, and I'm just going to get a spoon and I'm going to place the guacamole in there, scoop it out, there we go, and perfect. Now I'm going to put this all on a serving board, and there we have it. What a way to celebrate Central American flavors. We have homemade tortillas, we have a chunky salsa, and a homemade guacamole. It smells so fresh. I can really smell the citrusy lime scent coming from the guacamole. And look at how, when we've presented it on our board, it just looks fantastic. So, enjoy your Central American dish.
Designing products, build them now. Cook and sew, make it wow, wow. So come along, it's DT with Grammarsaurus.